Good evening for all the participants of this marathon that dedicated for the benefit of all, of the whole world. And we are reading the beautiful Caitanya-caritamrta that describes activities of Lord Chaitanya 500 years ago, which was seen by everyone in this universe. Someone was just watching and someone came here to take part in these activities of Lord Chaitanya. So here sometimes we see that Lord Chaitanya have some special attention to some persons. To someone he is neutral, to someone he don't pay any attention, but to someone he pay some special attention because they have more close relations, because there are a lot of close devotees from Vrindavana. There was expansion of Arjuna, and so we can see that Lord have this diversity in relations. From one side, he have the same relation to everyone. But on the other side, he has some special attention because the devotee have pay some special attention to Lord, and the Lord reciprocate to it. And the most highest relations are between Srimati Radharani and the Lord. So the Lord can't live without her. So like Radharani can't live without the Lord. And this is the most intimate relations. And of course, it's difficult for us to understand such things, and it may be not so right to talk about these topics. But somehow we have these knowledges. It's a plan of the Lord to bring us such secrets, and someone will understand and someone will not. And there is this play where Lord the Krishnadas Kaviraja say that I wrote this Caitanya-caritamrta not to please someone. I just did it, and someone will understand it and someone will not. And now we will go further, reading 13th chapter of Madhya-lila, which is called the ecstatic dancing of the Lord at Radha-yatra. So let's recite the prayers and begin. Jai Jai Sri Caitanya, Jai Nityananda, Jai Dvaita Chandra, Jai Gaura Bhaktavrinda, Jai Jai Sri Caitanya, Jai Nityananda, Jai Dvaita Chandra, Jai Gaura Bhaktavrinda, Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya, Jai Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhaktavrinda. The 13th chapter, the ecstatic dancing of the Lord at Radha-yatra. A summary of this chapter is given by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his Amrita Pravaha Bhashya as follows. After bathing early in the morning, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw the deities Jagadanath Jagannatha, Baladeva, and Subhadra get aboard the three cars. This function is called Pandavijaya. At the time, Queen Prataparudra took a broom with a golden handle and began to cleanse the road. Lord Jagannatha took permission from the goddess of fortune and then started in the car for the Gundicha temple. The road to the temple led along a broad sandy beach, and on both sides of the road were residential quarters, houses and gardens. Along that road, the servants, called Gaudas, began to pull the cars. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu divided his Sankirtan party into 7 divisions, with 2 mridangas in each division. There were altogether 14 mridangas. While performing Kirtana, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu exhibited various symptoms of transcendental ecstasy, and Jagannatha and Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu exchanged their feelings very blissfully. When the cars reached the place known as Balagandi, the devotees offered the deities simple food. At this time, in a nearby garden, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu and his devotees took a brief rest from the dancing. So this is the preface. This is the review of this chapter. May the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, who danced in front of the car of Sri Jagannatha, be all glorified. By seeing his dancing, not only was the whole universe held in wonder, but Lord Jagannatha himself became very much astonished. All glories to Sri Krishna Chaitanya and Prabhu Nityananda. All glories to Advaita Chandra, and all glories to the devotees of Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. All glories to the listeners of Sri Caitanya-caritamrta. Please hear the description of the dancing of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at the Radha-yatra festival. His dancing is very enchanting. Please hear it with great attention. The next day, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu and his personal associates got up in the dark and attentively took their early morning baths. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu and his personal associates then went to see the ceremony of Pandu Vijaya. During this ceremony, Lord Jagannatha leaves his throne and gets up onto the car. King Prataparudra in person, as well as his entourage, allowed the Pandu Vijaya ceremony to be seen by all the associates of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu and his prominent devotees, Advaita Acharya, Nityananda Prabhu, and others were very happy to observe how Lord Jagannatha began the Radha-yatra. And the very strong willed deities, curious of the Jagannatha deity, were as powerful as drunken elephants. They manually carried Lord Jagannatha from the throne to the car. While carrying the deity of Lord Jagannatha, some of the deities took hold to the shoulders of the Lord, and some caught his lotus feet. The Lord Jagannatha deity was bound at the waist by a strong, thick rope made of silk. From 2 sides, the deities caught hold of the rope and raised the deity. Strong put-up cotton pads called tules were spread out from the throne to the car, and the heavy deity of Lord Jagannatha was carried from one pillow-like pad to the next by the deities. While the deities carried the heavy Jagannatha deity from one pad to the next, some of the pads broke, and the cotton contents floated into the air. When they broke, they made a heavy cracked sound. Lord Jagannatha is the maintainer of the whole universe. Who can carry him from one place to another? The Lord moves by his personal will just to perform his pastimes. while the Lord was transported from the throne to the car, tumultuous sound were made on various musical instruments. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was chanting Manima, Manima, but he could not be heard. While the Lord was being carried from the throne to the car, King Prataparudra personally engaged in the Lord's service by cleansing the road with a broom that had a golden handle. The king sprinkled the road with sandalwood scented water. Although he was the owner of the royal throne, he engaged in menial service for the sake of Lord Jagannatha. Although the king was the most exalted responsible person, still he accepted menial service for the Lord. He therefore became a suitable candidate for receiving the Lord's mercy. Upon seeing the king engaged in such menial service, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became very happy. Simply by rendering this service, the king received the mercy of the Lord. Everyone was astonished to see the decorations of the Radha car. The car appeared to be newly made of gold, and it was high as Mount Sumeru. The decorations included bright mirrors and hundreds of chamaras, white whisk made of yak tails. On top of the car were a neat and clean canopy and a very beautiful flag. The car was also decorated with silken cloths and various pictures. Many brass bells, gongs, and ankle bells rang. For the pastimes of the Radha Yatra ceremony, Lord Jagannatha got aboard on car, and his sister Subhadra and elder brother Balarama got aboard to other cars aboard. For 15 days, the Lord had remained in a secluded place with the Supreme Goddess of Fortune and had performed his pastimes with her. Having taken permission from the Goddess of Fortune, the Lord came out to ride on the Radha car and performed his pastimes for the pleasure of the devotees. The fine white sand spread all over the path resembled the bank of the Yamuna, and the small gardens of both sides looked just like those in Vrindavana. As Lord Jagannatha rode in his car and saw the beauty on both sides, his mind was filled with pleasure. The pillars of the car were known as Gaudas, and they pulled with great pleasure. However, the car sometimes went very fast and sometimes very slow. Sometimes the car would stand still and not move even though it was pulled very vigorously. The chariot therefore moves by the will of the Lord, not by the strength of any ordinary person. As the car stood still, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu gathered all his devotees and with his own hand decorated them with flowers, garlands, and sandalwood pulp. Paramananda Puri and Brahmananda Bharati were both personally given garlands and sandalwood pulp from the very hands of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. This increased their transcendental pleasure. Similarly, when Advaita Acharya and Nityananda Prabhu felt the touch of the transcendental hand of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, they were very pleased. The Lord also gave garlands and sandalwood pulp to the performers of Sankirtan, and the two chief performers were Svarupa Damodara and Srivasa Thakura. There were altogether 4 parties of Kirtana performers comprising 24 chanters. In each party there were also 2 mridanga players, making an additional 8 persons. When the 4 parties were formed, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, after some consideration, divided the chanters. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu ordered Nityananda Prabhu, Advaita Acharya, Haridasa Thakura, and the Vakreshwara Pandita to dance in each of the 4 respective parties. Svarupa Damodara was chosen as the leader of the first party and was given the 5 assistants to respond to his chanting. The 5 who responded to the singing of Svarupa Damodara were Damodara Pandita, Narayana Govinda Datta, Raghava Pandita, and Sri Govinda Nanda. Advaita Acharya Prabhu was ordered to dance in the first group. The Lord then formed another group with Srivasa Thakura as the chief man. The 5 singers who responded to the singing of Srivasa Thakura were Gangadasa, Haridasa, Srimana Subhananda, and Sri Rama Pandita. Sri Nityananda Padu was appointed as a dancer. Another group was formed consisting of Vasudeva, Gopinath, and Murari. All these were responsive singers, and Mukunda was the chief singer. Another 2 persons, Sri Kanta and Vallabhasena, joined as responsive singers. In this group, the senior Haridasa Thakura was a dancer. The Lord formed another group, appointing Govinda Ghosha as leader. In this group, the younger Haridasa, Vishnudasa, and Raghava were the responding singers. 2 brothers named Madhava Ghosha and Vasudeva Ghosha also joined this group and as responsive singers. Akreshwarava Pandita was the dancer. There was a Sankirtana party from the village known as Kuliga Grama, and Ramananda and Satyaraja were appointed dancers in this group. There was another party that came from Shantipura and was formed by Advaita Acharya. Achitananda was a dancer, and the rest of the men were singers. Another party was formed by the people of Khanda. These people were singing in a different place. In that group, Narahari, Prabhu, and Raghunandana were dancing. 4 parties chanted and danced in front of Lord Jagannatha, and on each side was another party. Yet another was at the rear. There were altogether 7 parties of Sankirtana, and in each party 2 men were beating drums. Thus, 14 drums were being played at once. The sound was tumultuous, and all the devotees became mad. All the Vaishnavas come together like an assembly of clouds. As the devotees chanted the holy names in great ecstasy, tears fell from their eyes like rain. When the Sankirtana resounded filled the 3 words, indeed, no one could hear any sounds of musical instruments other than the Sankirtana. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wandered through all 7 groups chanting the holy name Hari Hari. Raising his arms, he shouted, "All glories to Lord Jagannatha." Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then exhibited another mystic power by performing pastimes simultaneously in all 7 groups. Everyone said, "Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is present in my group." Indeed, he does not go anywhere else. He is bestowing his mercy upon us. Actually, no one could see the inconceivable potency of the Lord. Only the most confidential devotees, those in pure, unalloyed devotional service, could understand. Lord Jagannatha was very much pleased by this Sankirtana, and he brought his car to a standstill just to see the performance. King Prataparudra was also astonished to see the Sankirtana. He became inactive and was converted to ecstatic love of Krishna. When the king informed Kashimishra of the glories of the Lord, Kashimishra replied, "O king, your fortune has no limit." The king and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya were both aware of the Lord's activities, but no one else could see the tricks of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Only a person who has received the mercy of the Lord can understand. Without the Lord's mercy, even the demigods headed by Lord Brahma cannot understand. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu had been very satisfied to see the king accept the mental task of sweeping the streets, menial task, and for this humility the king received the mercy of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. He could therefore observe the mystery of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu's activities. Although the king had been refused an interview, he was indirectly bestowed causeless mercy. Who can understand the internal potency of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When the two great personalities, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and Kashimisha, saw Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's causeless mercy upon the king, they were astonished. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu performed his pastimes for some time in this way. He personally sang and induced his personal associates to dance. According to his needs, the Lord sometimes exhibited one form and sometimes many. This was being executed by his eternal potency. Indeed, the personality of Godhead forgot himself in the course of his transcendental pastimes, but his internal potency, Lila Shakti, knowing the intentions of the Lord, made all arrangements. Just as Lord Sri Krishna formerly performed the Rasa-lila dance and other pastimes at Vrindavana, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu performed uncommon pastimes moment after moment. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's dancing before the Ratha Yatra could be perceived only by pure devotees. Others could not understand. Descriptions of Lord Krishna's uncommon dancing can be found in the revealed scripture Srimad Bhagavatam. In this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu danced in great jubilation and inundated all the people with the waves of ecstatic love. Thus, Lord Jagannatha mounted his car, and Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu inspired all his devotees to dance in front of it. Now please hear about Lord Jagannatha's going to the Gundicha temple while Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu danced before the Radha car. The Lord performed kirtana for some time, and though his own endeavor inspired all the devotees to dance. When the Lord himself wanted to dance, all 7 groups combined together. The Lord's devotees, including Srivasa, Ramai, Raghu, Govinda, Mukunda, Haridasa, Govinda, Danda, Madhava and Govinda, all combined together. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu desired to jump high while dancing, he placed these 9 people in the charge of Svarupa Damodara. These devotees, Svarupa Damodara and the devotees in his charge, sang along with the Lord, and they also ran beside him. All the other groups of men also sang. Offering obeisances to the Lord with folded hands, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu raised his face toward Jagannatha and prayed as follows: "Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto Lord Krishna, who is the worshipable deity for all Brahminical men, who is the well-wisher of cows, brahmanas, and who is always benefiting the whole world. I offer my repeated obeisances to the personality of Godhead, known as Krishna and Govinda. All glories unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is known as the son of Devaki. All glories to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is known as the light of the dynasty of Vrishni. All glories to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose bodily luster is like that of a new cloud, and whose body is as soft as a lotus flower. All glories to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who appeared of this planet to deliver the world from the burden of demons and who can offer liberation to everyone. Lord Shri Krishna is He who is known as Jananivasa, the ultimate resort of all living entities, and who is also known as Devakinandana or Yashodanandana, the son of Devaki and Yashoda. He is the guide of the Yadu dynasty, and with his mighty arms he kills everything inauspicious, as well as every man who is impious. By his presence he destroys all things inauspicious for all living entities, moving and inert. His blissful, smiling face always increases the lusty desires of the gopis of Vrindavana. May he be all glorious and happy. I am not a Brahmana, I am not a Kshatriya, I am not a Vaishya or a Shudra, nor am I a Brahmachari, a householder, a Vanaprastha or a sannyasi. I identify myself only as a servant of the servant of the servant of the lotus feet of Lord Sri Krishna, the maintainer of the gopis. He is like an ocean of nectar and He is the cause of universal transcendental bliss. He is always existing with brilliance. Having recited all these verses from Scripture, the Lord again offered His obeisances, and all the devotees with folded hands also offered prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu danced and jumped high, roaring like thunder and moving in a circle like a wheel, he appeared like a circling firebrand. Wherever Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stepped while dancing, the whole earth with its hills and seas appeared to tilt. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu danced, he displayed various blissful transcendental changes in his body. Sometimes he appeared as though stunned, sometimes the hairs of his body stood on end, sometimes he perspired, cried, trembled, and changed color, and sometimes he exhibited symptoms of helplessness, pride, exuberation, and humility. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu fell down with a crash while dancing, he would roll on the ground. At such times, it appeared that the golden mountain was rolling on the ground. Nityananda Prabhu would stretch out his two hands and try to catch the Lord when he was running here and there. Advaita Acharya would walk behind the Lord and loudly chant Haribol, Haribol again and again. And just to check the crowds from coming too near the Lord, the devotees formed three circles. The first circle was guided by Nityananda Prabhu, who is Balarama himself, the possessor of great strength. All the devotees headed by Kashishvara and Govinda linked hand and formed a second circle around the Lord. Maharaja Prataparudra and his personal assistants formed a third circle around the two inner circles just to check the crowds from coming too near. With his hands on the shoulders of Harichandana, King Prataparudra could see Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu dancing, and the king felt great ecstasy. While the king beheld the dancing, Srivasa Thakura standing in front of him became ecstatic as he saw the dancing of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Seeing Srivasa Thakura standing before the king, Harichanda touched Srivasa with his hand and requested him to step aside. Absorbed in watching Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu dance, Srivasa Thakura could not understand why he was being touched and pushed. After he was pushed again and again, he became angry. Srivasa Thakura slapped Harichandana and stopped him from pushing him. In turn, he made Harichandra angry. As he angered Harichandana was about to speak to Srivasa Thakura, Prataparudra Maharaja personally stopped him. King Prataparudra said, "You are very fortunate, for you have been graced by the touch of Srivasa Thakura. I am not so fortunate, you should feel obliged to him." Everyone was astonished by the dancing of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and even Lord Jagannatha became extremely happy to see him. The car came to a complete standstill and remained immobile, while Lord Jagannatha with unblinking eyes watched the dancing of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The goddess of fortune Subhadra and Lord Balarama both felt great happiness and ecstasy within their hearts. Indeed, they were seen smiling at the dancing. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu danced and jumped high, 8 wonderful transformations indicative of divine ecstasy were seen in his body. All these symptoms were visible simultaneously. His skin erupted with goose pimples, and the hairs of his body stood on end. His body resembled the silk cotton tree, all covered with thorns. Indeed, the people became afraid just to see his teeth chatter, and they even thought that his teeth would fall out. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's whole body flowed with perspiration and at the same time oozed blood. He made the sound Jagat Gaga Jagat Gaga in a voice choked with ecstasy. Tears came forcefully from the eyes of the Lord, as if from a syringe, and all the people surrounding him became wet. Everyone saw the complexion of his body change from white to pink, so that his luster resembled that of the malika flower. Sometimes he appeared stunned, and sometimes he rolled on the ground. Indeed, sometimes his legs and hands became as hard as dry wood, and he did not move. When the Lord fell to the ground, sometimes he breathed and almost stopped. When the devotees saw this, their lives also became very feeble. Water flowed from his eyes, and sometimes through his nostrils, and foam fell from his mouth. This flowering appeared to the torrents of nectar descending from the moon. The foam that fell from the mouth of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was taken and drunk by Subhananda because he was very fortunate and expert in relishing the meal of ecstatic love of Krishna. After Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had performed his devastating dance for some time, his mind entered into a mood of ecstatic love. After abandoning the dance, the Lord ordered Svarupa Damodara to sing. Understanding his mind, Svarupa Damodara began to sing as follows. Now I have gained the Lord of my life, in the absence of whom I was being burned by Cupid and was withering away. When this refrain was loudly sung by Svarupa Damodara, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu again began rhythmically dancing in transcendental bliss. The car of Lord Jagannatha began to move slowly, while the son of Mother Shachi went ahead and danced in front. While dancing and singing, all the devotees in front of Lord Jagannatha kept their eyes on him. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then went to the end of the procession with the Sankirtana performers. His eyes and mind fully absorbed in Lord Jagannatha, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to play the drama of the song with his two arms. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was dramatically enacting the song, he would sometimes fall behind in the procession. At such time, Lord Jagannatha would come to a standstill. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu again went forward, Lord Jagannatha's car would slowly start again. Thus, there was a sort of competition between Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Jagannatha in seeing who would lead, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was so strong that he made Lord Jagannatha wait in his car. While Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was dancing his ecstasy, raising his two arms, he began to recite the following verse in a loud voice. And that very personality who stole away my heart during my youth is now again my master. These are the same moonlight nights of the month of Chaitra. The same fragrance of malati flowers in these, and the same sweet breezes are blowing from the Kadamba forest. In our intimate relationship, I am also the same lover, yet still my mind is not happy here. I am eager to go back to that place on the bank of the Reva under the Vetasi tree. That is my desire. This verse was recited by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu again and again, but for Svarupa Damodara, no one could understand its meaning. I have already explained this verse. Now I shall simply describe it in brief. Formerly, all the gopis of Vrindavan were very pleased when they met with Krishna in the holy place Kurukshetra. Similarly, after seeing Lord Jagannatha, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu awoke with the ecstasy of the gopis. Being absorbed in this ecstasy, he asked Svarupa Damodara to sing the refrain. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spoke thus to Lord Jagannatha. You are the same Krishna, and I am the same Radharani. We are meeting again in the same way that we met in the beginning of our lives. Although we are both the same. My mind is still attracted to Vrindavan and Dhama. I wish that you will please again appear with your lotus feet in Vrindavana. In Kurukshetra, there are crowds of people, elephants and horses, and also there are rattling of chariots. But in Vrindavana, there are flower gardens and the humbling of the bees and chirping of the birds can be heard. Here at Kurukshetra, you are dressed like a royal prince, accompanied by great fairies, but in Vrindavana you appeared just like an ordinary cowherd boy, accompanied only by your beautiful flute. Here there is not even a drop of the ocean of transcendental happiness that I enjoyed with you in Vrindavana. I therefore request you to come to Vrindavana and enjoy pastimes with me. If you do so, my ambition will be fulfilled. I have already described in brief Srimati Radharani's statements from Srimad Bhagavatam. In that ecstatic mood, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu recited many other verses, but people in general could not understand their meaning. The meaning of these verses was known to Swarupa Damodara Goswami, but he did not reveal it. However, Sri Rupa Goswami has broadcast the meaning. While dancing, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu began to recite the following verse he tasted in the cessation of Swarupa Damodara Goswami. The gopis spoke thus: Dear Lord, those whose navel is just like a lotus flower, your lotus feet are the only shelter for those who have fallen into the deep well of material existence. Your feet are worshipped and meditated upon by great mystic yogis and highly learned philosophers. We wish that those lotus feet may also be awakened within our hearts, although we are only ordinary persons engaged in household affairs. Speaking in the mood of Srimati Radharani, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, For most people the mind and heart are one, but because my mind is never separated from Vrindavana, I consider my mind and Vrindavana to be one. My mind is already Vrindavana, and since you like Vrindavana, will you please place your lotus feet there? I would deem that your full mercy. My dear Lord, kindly hear my true submission. My home is Vrindavana, and I wish your association there. But if I do not get it, well, then it will be very difficult for me to keep my life. My dear Krishna, formerly, when you were staying in Manhura, you sent Uddhava to teach me speculative knowledge and mystic yoga. Now you yourself are speaking the same thing, but my mind doesn't accept it. There is no place in my mind for Jnana Yoga or Dhyana Yoga, although you know me very well. You are still instructing me in Jnana Yoga and Dhyana Yoga. It is not right for you to do so. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, I would like to withdraw my consciousness from you and engage it in material activities. But even though I try, I cannot do so. I am naturally inclined to you only. Your instructions for me to meditate on you are therefore simply ludicrous. In this way, you are killing me. It is not very good for you to think of me as a candidate for your instructions. The gopis are not like the mystic yogis. They will never be satisfied simply by meditating on your lotus feet and imitating the so-called yogis. Teaching the gopis about meditation is another kind of duplicity. When they are instructed to undergo mystic yoga practice, they are not at all satisfied. On the contrary, they become more and more angry with you. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu continued, the gopis have fallen into the great ocean of separation and are being devoured by the Timingila fish of the ambition to serve you. The gopis are to be delivered from the mouths of these Timingila fish, for they are pure devotees. Since they have no material conception of life, why should they aspire for liberation? The gopis do not want that liberation desired by yogis and jnanis, for they are already liberated from the ocean of material existence. It is amazing that you have forgotten the land of Vrindavana, and how is it that you have forgotten your father, mother, and friends? How have you forgotten Govardhana Hill, the bank of the Yamuna, and the forest where you enjoyed the Rasa-lila dance? Krishna, you are certainly a refined gentleman with all good qualities. You are well-behaved, soft-hearted and merciful. I know that there is no even a tinge of fault to be found in you, yet your mind does not even remember the inhabitants of Vrindavana. This is only my misfortune and nothing else. I do not care for my personal unhappiness, but when I see the morose face of Mother Yashoda and the hearts of all the inhabitants of Vrindavana breaking because of you, I wonder whether you want to kill them all, or do you want to enliven them by coming there? Why are you simply keeping them alive in a state of suffering? The inhabitants of Vrindavana do not want you dressed like a prince, nor do they want you to associate with the great pharaohs in their different countries. They cannot leave the land of Vrindavana, and without your presence they are all dying. What is their condition to be? My dear Krishna, you are the life and soul of Vrindavana Dhama. You are especially the life of Nanda Maharaja. You are the only opulence in the land of Vrindavana, and you are very merciful. Please come and let all the residents of Vrindavana live. Kindly keep your lotus feet again in Vrindavana. After hearing Srimati Radharani's statements, Lord Krishna's love for the inhabitants of Vrindavana was awakened, and his body and mind became very much perturbed. After hearing of their love for him, he immediately thought himself to be always indebted to the residents of Vrindavana. Then Krishna began to pacify Srimati Radharani as follows. My dear Srimati Radharani, please hear me. I am speaking the truth. I cry day and night simply upon remembering all the inhabitants of Vrindavana. No one knows how unhappy this makes me. Sri Krishna continued, all the inhabitants of Vrindavana Dhama, my mother, father, cowherd, boyfriends, and everything else are like my life and soul. And among all the inhabitants of Vrindavana, the gopis are my very life and soul. And among the gopis, you, Srimati Radharani, are the chief. Therefore, you are the very life of my life. My dear Srimati Radharani, I am always subservient to the loving affairs of all of you. I am under your control only. My separation from you and residence in distant place have occurred due to my strong misfortune. When a woman is separated from the man she loves, or a man is separated from his beloved woman, neither of them can live. It is a fact that they live only for each other, for if one dies and the other hears of it, he or she will die also. Such a loving, chaste life and loving husband desire all welfare for each other in separation, and do not care for personal happiness, desiring only each other's well-being. Such a pair certainly meet again without delay. You are my most dear, and I now know that in my absence you cannot live for a moment. Just to keep you living, I worship Lord Narayana. By his merciful potency, I come to Vrindavana every day to enjoy pastimes with you. I then return to Dwaraka Dhama, thus you can always feel my presence there in Vrindavana. Our love affair is more powerful because of my good fortune in receiving Narayana's grace. This allows me to come there unseen by others. I hope that very soon I will be visible to everyone. I have already killed all the mischievous demons who are enemies of the Yadu dynasty, and I have also killed Kamsa and his allies. But there are two awful demons still living. I want to kill them, and after doing so, I shall very soon return to Vrindavana. Please know this for certain. I wish to protect the inhabitants of Vrindavana from the attacks of my enemies. That is why I remain in my kingdom. Otherwise, I indifferent to my royal position. Whatever wives, sons, and wealth I maintain in the kingdom are only for the satisfaction of the others. Your loving qualities always attract me to Vrindavana. Indeed, they will bring me back within 10 or 20 days, and when I return, I shall enjoy both day and night with you and all the damsel of Rajabhumi. While speaking to Srimati Radharani, Krishna became very anxious to return to Vrindavana. He made her listen to a verse which banished all her difficulties and which assured her that she would again attain Krishna. Lord Sri Krishna said, "Devotional service unto me is the only way to attain me. My dear gopis, whatever love and affection you have attained for me by good fortune is the only reason for my returning to you." Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would sit in his room with Svarupa Damodara and taste the topics of these verses day and night. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu danced completely absorbed in ecstatic emotion. While looking at the face of Lord Jagannatha, he danced and recited these verses. No one can describe the good fortune of Svarupa Damodara Goswami, for he is always absorbed in the service of the Lord with his body, mind, and words. The senses of Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu were identical with the senses of Svarupa. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to become fully absorbed in tasting and the seeing of Svarupa Damodara. In emotional ecstasy, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would sometimes sit on the ground and, looking down, would write on the ground with his finger. Fearing that the Lord would injure his finger by writing in this way, Svarupa Damodara checked him with his own hand. Svarupa Damodara used to sing exactly according to the ecstatic emotion of the Lord. Whenever a particular meal was being tasted by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Svarupa Damodara would personify it by singing. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu looked upon the beautiful lotus-like face and the eyes of Lord Jagannatha. Lord Jagannatha was gallantly dressed with nice garments and adorned with beautiful ornaments. His face was glittering from the rays of sunshine, and the entire atmosphere was fragrant. An ocean of transcendental bliss expanded in the heart of the Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and symptoms of madness immediately intensified like a hurricane. The madness of transcendental bliss created waves of various emotions. The emotions appeared like opposing soldiers standing at fight. There was an increase in all the natural emotional symptoms. Thus, there were awakening emotions, peacefulness, joy, mixed transcendental and prevalent emotions, and impetus for emotions. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's body appeared like a transcendental Himalayan mountain bearing ecstatic emotional flower trees, all of them blooming. The sight of all these symptoms attracted everyone's mind and consciousness. Indeed, the Lord sprinkled everyone's mind with the nectar of transcendental love of Godhead. He sprinkled the mind of the servants of Lord Jagannatha, the government officers, the pilgrim visitors, and general populace, and all the residents of Jagannatha Puri. Upon seeing the dancing, the ecstatic love of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, everyone became astonished. In their hearts, they became infatuated with love of Krishna. Everyone danced and chanted in ecstatic love, and a great noise resounded. Everyone was overwhelmed with transcendental bliss just to see the dancing of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Apart from the others, even Lord Jagannatha and Lord Balarama, with great happiness, began to move very slowly upon seeing the dancing of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Lord Jagannatha and Lord Balarama sometimes stopped the car and happily observed Lord Chaitanya's dancing. Anyone who was able to see them them stop and watch the dancing bowl with witness to their pastimes. When Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was dancing and wandering in this way, he fell down in front of Maharaja Prataparudra. Maharaja Prataparudra picked the Lord up with great respect, but upon seeing the king, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to his external senses. After seeing the king, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu condemned himself, saying, "Oh, now pitiful it is that I have touched a person who is interested in mundane affairs." Not even Lord Nityananda Prabhu, Kashishvara, or Govinda took care of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when he fell down. Nityananda was in great ecstasy, and Kashishvara and Govinda were elsewhere. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had already been satisfied by the king's behavior, for the king had accepted the service of a sweeper for Lord Jagannatha. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually desired to see the king. However, just to warn his personal associate, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu externally expressed feeling of anger. King Prataparudra became frightened when Lord Chaitanya showed external anger, but Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya told the king, "Don't worry." Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya informed the king, "The Lord is very satisfied with you. By pointing you out, he was teaching his personal associates how to behave with mundane people." Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya continued, "I shall submit your petition when there is an opportune moment. It will then be easy for you to come and meet the Lord." After circumambulating Jagannatha, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went behind the car and began pushing it with his head. As soon as he pushed, the car immediately started to move, making a rattling noise. The people all around began to chant the holy name of the Lord. Hari, Hari. As the car began to move, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took his personal associates in front of the cars occupied by Lord Balarama and Subhadra, the goddess of fortune. Greatly inspired, he then began to dance in front of them. After finishing the dance before Lord Baladeva and Subhadra, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came before the Lord Jagannatha's car. Upon seeing Lord Jagannatha, he began to dance again. When they reached the place called Balagandi, Lord Jagannatha stopped his car and began to look left and right. On the other side, Lord Jagannatha saw a neighborhood of Brahmanas and a coconut tree grove. On the right side, he saw nice flower gardens, resembling those in the holy place of Vrindavana. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his devotees were dancing in front of the car, and Lord Jagannatha, having stopped the car, watched the dancing. It was customary that food be offered to the Lord at Viprashasana. Indeed, the innumerable dishes of food were offered, and Lord Jagannatha tasted each one of them. All kinds of devotees of Lord Jagannatha, from neophytes to the most advanced, offered their best cookies food to the Lord. These devotees included the king, his queens, his ministers and friends, and all other big and small residents of Jagannatha Puri. All the visitors who had come from different countries to Jagannatha Puri, as well as the local devotees, offered their personal cooked food to the Lord. The devotees offered their food everywhere, in front of the car and behind it, on the two sides and within the flower garden. Wherever possible, they made the offering to the Lord, for there were no hard and fast rules. While the food was being offered, a large crowd of people gathered. At that time, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu stopped his dancing and went to a nearby garden. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu entered the garden and, immersed in great ecstatic emotion, fell flat on a raised platform there. The Lord was very much fatigued from the hard labor of dancing, and there was perspiration all over his body. He therefore enjoyed the fragrant cool breeze of the garden. All the devotees who had been performing Sankirtana came there and took rest under each and every tree. Thus I have described the great performance of congregational chanting by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as he danced in front of the Lord Jagannatha. In his prayer, known as the Caitanya-caritamrta, Srila Rupa Goswami has given a vivid description of the Lord's dancing before the car of Jagannatha. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu danced down the main road in great ecstasy before Lord Jagannatha, the master of Nilachala, who was sitting in his car, overwhelmed by the transcendental bliss of dancing and surrounded by Vaishnavas who sang the holy names. He manifested waves of ecstatic love of Godhead. When will Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu again be visible to my vision? Anyone who hears, this is a question, when will Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu again be visible to my vision? Anyone who hears this description of this car festival will attain Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. He will also attain the elevated state by which he will have firm conviction in devotional service and love of Godhead. Praying at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa and Sri Raghunatha, always desiring their mercy, I Krishnadasa narrate Sri Caitanya-caritamrta, following in these footsteps. This is the end of the 13th chapter. If someone didn't visit Rath-yatra, so that you should pray to the God that everything became good, everything would open, the flights would begin, so that you could visit this Rath-yatra. Everything still happening every year. Every year, the residents build the cars for Rath-yatra and go through the streets of the city. But here, Krishnadas Kaviraja Goswami promised that everyone who hear attentively will gain very high position for loving to God. And also he is saying that they will come to the association for the association with devotees. So as you will think about it, it will be the Lord will make this come true. So that it was happened that someone could go to the car and embrace the God. So there was a lot of mercy at those times. So let's continue. The 14th chapter, the performance of the Vrindavan pastimes, the review of the chapter. Dressing himself as a Vaishnava, Maharaja Prataparudra entered the garden at Balagandi alone and began reciting verses from Srimad Bhagavatam. He then took the opportunity to massage the lotus feet of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. The Lord, in his ecstatic love for Krishna, immediately embraced the king and thus bestowed mercy upon him. When there was an offering of prasadam in the garden, Lord Chaitanya also partook of it. After this, when Lord Jagannatha Radha car stopped moving, King Prataparudra called for many elephants to pull it, but they were unsuccessful. Seeing this, Lord Chaitanya began to push the car from behind with his head, and the car began moving. Then the devotees began pulling the car with ropes. Near the Gundicha temple is a place known as Aitota. This place was fixed up for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to rest in. When Lord Jagannatha was seated at Sundarachala, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw it as Vrindavana. He performed sports and pastimes in the water of the lake known as Indradyumna. For 9 continuous days during Radha Yatra, the Lord remained at Sundarachala. And on the 5th day, he and Svarupa Damodara observed the pastimes of Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune. During that time, there was much talk about the pastimes of the gopis. When the Radha was again being drawn and the chanting resumed, 2 devotees from Kulina Grama, Ramananda Vasu and Satyaraja Khan, were requested to bring silk robes every year for the Radha Yatra ceremony. So this was the review of this chapter. Accompanied by his personal devotees, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to the festival known as Lakshmi Vijayotsav. There he discussed the super excellent love of the gopis. Just by hearing about them, he became very pleased and danced in great ecstasy love for the Lord. All glories of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, known as Gaurachandra. All glories to Lord Nityananda Prabhu. All glories to Advaita Acharya, who is so exalted. All glories to all the devotees headed by Srivasa Thakura. All glories to the readers who have taken Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as their life and soul. While Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was reciting in ecstatic love, Maharaja Prataparudra entered the garden, resting in ecstatic love. Following Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's instructions, the king had given up the royal dress. He now entered the garden in the dress of a Vaishnava. Maharaja Prataparudra was so humble that with folded hands he first took permission for all the devotees. Then, with great courage, he fell down and touched the lotus feet of the Lord. As Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu lay on the raised platform with his eyes closed in ecstatic love and emotion, the king very expertly began to massage his legs. The king began to recite verses about the Rasa-lila from Srimad Bhagavatam. He recited the chapter beginning with the words Jayati Te Tikam. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard these verses, he was pleased beyond limits, and he said again and again, "Go on reciting, go on reciting." As soon as the king recited the verse beginning with the words Tava Kathamritam, the Lord rose in ecstatic love and embraced him. Upon hearing the verse recited by the king, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "You have given me invaluable gems, but I have nothing to give you in return. Therefore, I am simply embracing you." After saying this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to recite the same verse again and again. Both the king and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were trembling, and tears were flowing from their eyes. "My Lord, the nectar of your words and the descriptions of your activities are the life and soul of those who are always aggrieved in this material world. These narrations are transmitted by exalted personalities, and they eradicate all sinful reactions. Whoever hears these narrations attain all good fortune. These narrations are broadcast all over the world and are filled with spiritual power. Those who spread the message of Godhead are certainly the most munificent welfare workers." After reciting this verse, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu immediately embraced the king and cried, You are the most munificent. You are the most munificent. At this point, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu didn't know who the king was. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy was aroused because of the king's previous service. Therefore, without even asking who he was, the Lord immediately bestowed his mercy upon him. How powerful is the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu! Without even inquiring about the king, the Lord made everything successful. Finally, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "Who are you? You have done so much for me. All of a sudden, you have come here and made me drink the nectar of the pastimes of Lord Krishna." The king replied, "My Lord, I am the most obedient servant of your servants. It is my ambition that you will accept me as the servant of your servants." At that time, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu displayed some of his divine opulences to the king, and he forbade him to disclose this to anyone. Although within his heart Chaitanya Mahaprabhu knew everything that was happening externally, he did not disclose it. Nor did he disclose that he knew he was talking with King Prataparudra. Seeing the Lord's special mercy upon King Prataparudra, the devotees praised the king's good fortune, and their minds became open and blissful. Submissively offering prayers to the devotees with folded hands and offering obeisances to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the king went outside. After this, Vaishnava Raya brought all kinds of prasadam, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted lunch with the devotees. The king also sent a large quantity of prasadam through Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Ramanandara, and Vaninath Haraya. The prasadam sent by the king had been offered at the Gandhi festival and included uncooked milk products and fruits. It was all of the finest quality, and there was no end to the variety. There were curd, fruit juice, coconut, mango, dried coconut, jackfruit, various kinds of bananas, and palm fruit seeds. There were also oranges, grapefruits, tangerines, almonds, dried fruit, raisin and dates. There were hundreds of different types of sweet meats, like Manohara Ladu, sweets, the Amrita Gutika, and various types of condensed milk. There were also papayas and saravati, a type of orange, and also crushed squash. There were also regular cream, fried cream, and a type of puri made with cream. There were also the sweets known as Harivalabha and sweets made of senoti flour, karpura flour, and malati flowers. There were pomegranates, sweets made with black pepper, sweets made with Fush's sugar, and Amrita jilipi. There were lotus flower sugar and kind of bread made from urad dal, crispy sweetmeats, sugar candy, fried rice sweets, sesame seed sweets, and cookies made from sesame seed. There were sugar candy sweetmeats formed into the shape of orange, mellow, lemon, and mango trees and arranged with fruits, flowers, and leaves. There were yogurt milk, buttermilk, fruit juice, and preparation made of friend yogurt and sugar candy and salty mandal sprouts with shredded ginger. There were also various types of pickles, lemon pickle, berry pickle, and so on. Indeed, I am not able to describe the variety of food offered to Lord Jagannatha. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw half the garden filled with the variety of prasadam, he was very satisfied. Indeed, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was fully satisfied just to see how Lord Jagannatha accepted all the food. There then arrived the 5 or 7 loads of plates made of the leaves of the Ketali tree. Each man was supplied 10 of these plates, and in this way the leaf dishes were distributed. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu understood the labor of all the Kirtana chanters. Therefore, therefore he was very eager to fill them sumptuously. All the devotees sat down in lines, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally began to distribute the prasadam. But the devotees would not accept the prasadam until Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took it. Svarupa Goswami informed the Lord of this. Svarupa Damodara said, "My Lord, please sit down. No one will eat until you do." At that time, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu sat down with his personal associates and had every one of them fed very sumptuously until they were filled on the neck. After finishing, the Lord washed his mouth and sat down. There was so much extra prasadam that it was distributed to thousands. Following the orders of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, Govinda, his personal servant, called for all the poor beggars who were unhappy due to their poverty and fed them sumptuously. Observing the beggars eating prasadam, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu chanted Haribol and instructed them to chant the holy name. As soon as the beggars chanted the holy name Haribol, they were immediately absorbed in ecstatic love of Godhead. In this way, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu performed wonderful pastimes. Outside the garden, when it was time to pull Jagannatha's car, all the workers called Gaudas tried to pull it, but it would not move forward. When the Gaudas saw that they could not budge the car, they abandoned the attempt. Then the king arrived in great anxiety, and he was accompanied by his officers and friends. The king then arrived for big wrestlers to try to pull the car, and even the king himself joined in, but the car could not be moved. Becoming even more anxious to move the car, the king had very strong elephants brought forth and harnessed to it. The strong elephants pulled with all their strength, but still the car remained at a standstill, not budging an inch. As soon as Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu heard this news, he went there with all his personal associates. Then they then stood there and watched the elephants try to pull the car. The elephants being beaten by the elephant gods were crying, but still the car would not move. The assembled people cried out, "Alas!" At that time, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu let all the elephants go free and placed the car's ropes in the hands of his own men. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu then went to the back of the car and began to push with his head. It was then that the car began to move and roll along, making a rattling sound. Indeed, the car began to move automatically, and the devotees simply carried the ropes in their hands. Since it was moving effortlessly, they didn't need to pull it. When all the cars moved forward, everyone began to chant with great pleasure, all glories, and all glories to Lord Jagannatha." No one could hear anything else. In a moment, the car reached the door of the Gaundicha temple. Upon seeing the uncommon strength of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, all the people were struck with wonder. The crowd made a tumultuous vibration, chanting Jaya Gauru Chandra, Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya. Then the people began to chant, "Wonderful, wonderful." Seeing the greatness of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, Prataparudra Maharaja and his ministers and friends were so moved by ecstatic love that their hair on their bodies stood on end. All the servants of Lord Jagannatha then took him down from the car, and the Lord went to sit on his throne. Subhadra and Balarama also sat on their respective thrones. They followed and the bathing of Lord Jagannatha, and finally the offering of food. While Lord Jagannatha, Lord Balarama, and Subhadra sat on their respective thrones, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu and his devotees began to perform Sankirtana with great pleasure, chanting and dancing in the yard of the temple. While Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu was chanting and dancing, he was overwhelmed with ecstatic love, and all the people who saw him were also flooded in the ocean of love of Godhead. In the evening, after finishing his dancing in the yard of the Gundicha temple, the Lord observed the Arati ceremony. Thereafter, he went to a place called Aitota and took rest for the night. For 9 days, 9 chief devotees headed by Advaita Acharya got an opportunity to invite the Lord to their homes. During the 4 months of the rainy season, the remaining devotees extended invitations to the Lord for 1 day each. In this way, they shared invitation. For the 4-month period, all the daily invitations were shared among the important devotees. The rest of the devotees did not get an opportunity to extend an invitation to the Lord. Since they could not get 1 day each, 2 or 3 devotees combined to extend an invitation. These are the pastimes of Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, acceptance of invitations. After taking his bath early in the morning, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu would go see Lord Jagannatha in the temple. Then he would perform Sankirtana with his devotees. By chanting and dancing, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu induced the Advaita Acharya to dance. Sometimes he induced Nityananda Prabhu, Haridas Thakur, and the Chitananda to dance. Sometimes Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu engaged Vaikreshvara and other devotees in chanting and dancing. 3 times daily, morning, noon, and evening, he would perform Sankirtana in the yard of the Gundicha temple. At this time, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu felt that Lord Krishna had returned to Vrindavan. Thinking in this, his feelings of separation from Krishna subsided. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu was always thinking of the pastimes of Radha and Krishna, and he remained personally immersed in these consciousness. There were many gardens near the Gundicha temple, and Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu and his devotees used to perform the pastimes of Vrindavana in each of them. In the lake named Indradyumna, he poured it in the water. The Lord personally splashed all the devotees with water, and the devotees surrounding him on all sides. All splashed the Lord. While in the water, they sometimes formed one circle and sometimes many circles, and while in the water, they used to play cymbals and imitate the croaking of frogs. Sometimes two would pair off to fight in the water. One would emerge victoriously and the other defeated, and the Lord would watch all this fun. The first sport took place between Advaita Acharya and Nityananda Prabhu, who threw water upon each other. Advaita Acharya was defeated, and he later began to rebuke Nityananda Prabhu, calling him ill names. Swarupa Damodar and Vidyanit, he also threw water upon each other. The Murari Gupta and Vasudeva all sported in this way. Another duel took place between Srivasa Thakur and the Gadadhara Pandita, and yet another between Raghunath Pandita and Vakreshwara Pandita. Thus, they all engaged in throwing water. Indeed, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya engaged in water sports with Sri Ramananda Rai, and they both lost their gravity and became like children. When Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu saw the exuberance of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and Ramananda Rai, he smiled and spoke to Gopinath Acharya. Tell the Bhattacharya and Ramananda Rai to stop their childish play, because they are both learned scholars and very grave and great personalities. Gopinath Acharya replied, I believe that one drop of the ocean of your great mercy has swelled up upon them. A drop from the ocean of your mercy can drown great mountains like Sumer and Mandar. Since these two gentlemen are little hills by comparison, it is no wonder that they are being drawn in ocean of your mercy. Lokshik is like a dry oil cake from which all the oil has been extracted. But the Acharya passed his life in eating such dry cakes, but now you have made him drink the nectar of transcendental pastimes. It's certainly your great mercy upon him. After Gopinath Acharya finished talking, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu smiled and, calling for Advaita Acharya, made him act like the Sheshanaga bed. Lying down on Advaita Prabhu, who was floating on the water, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu demonstrated the pastimes of Shesha. Sheshashai Vishnu. Manifesting his personal potency, Advaita Acharya floated about on the water carrying Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. After sporting in the water for some time, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu returned to his place and at Aitota, accompanied by his devotees Paramananda Puriba, Ramananda Bharati, and all the other chief devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took lunch at the invitation of Advaita Acharya. Whatever extra prasadam was brought by Vaninath Raya was taken by the other associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In the afternoon, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to the Gundicha temple to visit the Lord and dance. At night, he went to the garden to take rest. The next day, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also went to the temple of Gundicha and saw the Lord. He then chanted and danced in the yard for some time. Accompanied by his devotees, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then went into the garden and enjoyed the pastimes of Vrindavana. There were multifarious trees and creepers in the garden, and they were all jubilant to see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Indeed, the birds were chirping, the bees were buzzing, and the cool breeze was blowing. As Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu danced beneath each and every tree, Vasudeva Datta sang alone. As Vasudeva Datta sang a different song beneath each and every tree, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu danced the three alone in great ecstasy. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then ordered Vakreshwara Pandit to dance, and as he began to dance, the Lord began to sing. Then devotees like Svarupa Damodara and other Kirtana performers began to sing along with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Being inundated with ecstatic love, they lost all consideration of time and circumstances. After this performing pastimes in the garden for some time, they all went to a lake called Narendra Sarovara, and there enjoyed sporting in the water. After sporting in the water, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu returned to the garden and accepted prasadam with the devotees. For 9 continuous days, His Lordship Sri Jagannatha Deva stayed at the Gundicha temple. During this time, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also stayed there and performed the pastimes with his devotees that have already been described. The garden of his pastimes was very large and was named Jagannatha Vallabha. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took his rest there for 9 days. Knowing that the Hera Panchami festival was drawing near, King Taparudra tentatively talked with Kashmisha. Tomorrow will be the function of Hera Panchami of Lakshmi Vijaya. Hold this festival in a way that it has never been held before. King Taparudra said, hold this festival in such a gorgeous way that upon seeing it, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will be completely pleased and astonished. Take as many painted clothes, small bells, umbrellas, and chamaras as there are in my storehouse and in the Jesus storehouse. Collect all kinds of small and large flags and ringing bells, then decorate the carriage and have various musical and dancing parties accompanying it. In this way, decorate the carriage attractively. You should also double the quantity of prasadam, make so much that it will even surpass the Rath Yatra festival. Arrange the festival in such a way that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu may freely go with his devotees to visit the deity without difficulty. In the morning, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu took his personal associates with him to see Lord Jagannatha and Sundarachala. Then Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu and his personal devotees returned to Nilachala with great eagerness to see the Hera Panchami festival. Kashmir received Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with great respect, and taking the Lord and his associates to a very nice place, he had them seated. After taking his seat, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to hear about a particular mellow of devotional service. Therefore, mildly smiling, he began to question Svarupa Damodara. Although Lord Jagannatha enjoys his pastimes at Dwarakadhama and naturally manifests sublimely liberately there, still once a year he becomes unlimitedly eager to see Vrindavana, pointing out the neighboring gardens, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, all these gardens exactly resemble Vrindavana. Therefore, Lord Jagannatha is very eager to see them again. Externally, he gives this excuse that he wants to participate in the Rath Yatra festival, but actually he wants to leave Jagannath Puri to go to Sundarachala, the Gundic temple, a replica of Vrindavana. The Lord enjoys his pastimes day and night in various flower gardens there, but why does he not take Lakshmi Devi, the goddess of fortune, with him? So Harupa Damodara replied, my dear Lord, please hear the reason for this. Lakshmi Devi, the goddess of fortune, cannot be admitted to the pastimes of Vrindavana. In the pastimes of Vrindavana, the only assistants are the gopis, but for the gopis, no one can attract the mind of Krishna. The Lord said, using the car festival as an excuse, Krishna goes there with Subhadra and Baladeva. All the pastimes with the gopis that take place in those gardens are very confidential ecstasies of Lord Krishna. No one knows them. Since there is no fault at all in Krishna's pastimes, why does the goddess of fortune become angry? Swarupa Damodara replied, it is the nature of a girl afflicted by love to become immediately angry upon finding any neglect on her part of her lover. While Swarupa Damodara and Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu were talking, the procession of the goddess of fortune came by. She was riding upon a golden palanquin carried by 4 men and bedecked with a variety of jewels. The palanquin was also surrounded by people carrying umbrellas, chamara, whisks, and flags, and it was preceded by musicians and dancing girls. The maid servants were carrying water pitchers, chamara, whisk, and boxes for the battle nuts. There were hundreds of maid servants, all attractively dressed and wearing valuable necklaces. In an angry mood, the goddess of fortune arrived at the main gate of the temple, accompanied by many members of her family, all of whom exhibited uncommon opulence. When the procession arrived, the maidservants of the goddess of fortune began to arrest all the principal servants of Lord Jagannatha. The maid servants bound the servants of Jagannatha, handcuffed them, and made them fall down at the lotus feet of the goddess of fortune. Indeed, they were arrested just like thieves who have all their riches taken away. When the servants fell down before the lotus feet of the goddess of fortune, they almost fell unconscious. They were chastised and made the butt of jokes and loose language. When Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu's associates saw that such impudence exhibited by the maidservants of the goddess of fortune, they covered their faces with their hands and began to smile. Swarupa Damodara said, there is no egoistic pride like this within the 3 words. At least I have never seen it or heard of it. When a woman is neglected and disappointed out of egoistic pride, she gives up her ornaments and morosely sits down on the ground, marking lines on it with her nails. I have heard of this kind of pride in Satyabhama, Krishna's proudest queen, and I have also heard of it in the gopis of Vrindavana, who are the reservoirs of all transcendental mellows. But in the case of the goddess of fortune, I see a different kind of pride. She manifests her own opulences and even goes with her soldiers to attack her husband. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu said, please tell me of the varieties of egoistic pride manifested in Vrindavana. The characteristic and modes of love are different in different women. Their jealous anger also taken on different varieties and qualities. It is not possible to give a complete statement about the different types of jealousy anger manifests by the gopis, but a few principles may serve as an indication. There are three types of women experiencing jealous anger: sober woman, restless woman, and woman both restless and sober. When a sober heroine sees her hero approaching from a distance, she immediately stands up to receive him. When he comes near, she immediately offers him a place to sit. The sober heroine conceals her anger within her heart and externally speaks sweet words. When her lover embraces her, she returns his embrace. The sober heroine is very simple in her behavior. She keeps her jealous anger within her heart, but with mild words and smiles she rejects the advances of her lover. The restless heroine, however, sometimes chastises her lover with cruel words, sometimes pulls his ear, and sometimes binds him with a flower garland. The heroine, who is a combination of sobriety and restlessness, always jokes with equivocal words. She sometimes praises her lover, sometimes blasphemes him, and sometimes remains indifferent. Heroines may also be classified as captivated, intimidated, and impudent. The captivated heroine does not know very much about the cunning intricacies of jealous anger. The captivated heroine simply covers her face and goes on crying. When she hears sweet words from her lover, she is very satisfied. Both the intimidated and impudent heroine can be classified as sober, restless, and both sober and restless. All the characteristics can be further classified in three divisions. Some of these heroines are very talkative, some are mild, and some are equiposed. Each heroine, according to her own character, increases Sri Krishna's love and ecstasy. Although some of the gopis are talkative, some mild, and some equiposed, all of them are transcendental and faultless. They please Krishna by their unique characteristics. Sri Caitanya-Mahaprabhu felt unlimited happiness upon hearing these descriptions, and he again and again requested Swarupa Damodara to continue speaking. Damodara Swarupa said, Krishna is the master of all transcendental mellows and the taster of all transcendental mellows, and his body is composed of transcendental bliss. Krishna is full of ecstatic love and always subordinate to the love of his devotees. The gopis are very much experienced in pure love and in these delights of transcendental mellows. There is no flaw of adulteration in the love of the gopis, therefore they gave Krishna the highest pleasure. Lord Shri Krishna, who is the absolute truth, enjoyed his rasa dance every night during the autumn season. He performed these dances in the moonlight and with full transcendental mellows. He used poetic words and surrounded himself with women who were very much attracted to him. The gopis can be divided into a left wing and right wing. Both wings induce Krishna to taste transcendental mellow by various manifestations of ecstatic love. Of all the gopis, Srimati Radharani is the chief. She is the jewel mine of ecstatic love and the source of all purified transcendental conjugal mellows. Radharani is grown up and her character is equiposed. She is always deeply absorbed in ecstatic love and always feeling in the mood of a left-wing gopi. Because she is a left-wing gopi, her womanly anger is always awakening. But Krishna derives transcendental bliss from her activities. The progress of love and affairs between a young boy and a young girl is by nature crooked, like the movement of a snake. Because of these, two types of anger arise between a young boy and girl: anger with a cause and anger without a cause. As Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard these talks, his ocean of transcendental bliss increased. He therefore told Swarupa Damodara, go on speaking, and thus Swarupa Damodara continued. Srimati Radharani's love is a highly advanced ecstasy. All her dealings are completely pure and devoid of material tinge. Indeed, her dealings are 10 times purer than gold. As soon as Radharani gets a chance to see Krishna, her body is suddenly decorated with various ecstatic ornaments. The transcendental ornaments of Srimati Radharani's body include the 8 sattvikas of transcendental symptoms, the 33 vyabhichari bhavas, beginning with harsha or jubilation in natural love, and the 20 bhavas of ecstatic emotional ornaments. Some of the symptoms critically explained in the following verse are Kila Kinchita, Kutamita, Vilasa, Lalita, Vivoka, Mutaita, Maudhya, and Chakita. When Srimati Radharani's body manifests the ornaments of many ecstatic symptoms, the ocean of Krishna's happiness immediately displays transcendental waves. Just a second. This is a picture of Lord Chaitanya, who is dancing in front of the Lord Jagannath's car. I want to see the description and the purport description of these symptoms. Шрила Прабхупада.
Да, Шрила Прабхупада здесь.
He is
переводит.
Translating. So let's read the translation of these descriptions of these symptoms. So, Kila Kinchita, a particular type of ecstatic ornament manifested at the time of seeing Krishna. Kutamita, the symptom are explained in verse 197. Vilasa, the symptom explained in verse 187. Lalita, the symptom explained in verse 192. Vivoka, neglecting the perception given by the hero. So this is a type of ecstasy. Someone give you a present and you neglect it. Mutaita, awakening of lusty desires by the remembrance and words of the hero. Ara, and Maugya, assuming the position of not knowing things, although everything is known. Chakita, a position in which The heroine appears very much afraid, although she is not at all afraid.
Хотя ей совсем не страшно.
So let's read further, and we'll go to that verses. When Shrimati Radharani's body manifests the ornaments of many ecstatic symptoms, the ocean of Krishna's happiness immediately displays transcendental waves. Now here a description of different ecstasies, beginning with Kila Kinchita. With these ecstatic ornaments, Shrimati Radharani enchants the mind of Krishna. When Shri Krishna sees Shrimati Radharani and wants to touch her body, he prohibits her from going to the spot where one can cross the river Yamuna. Approaching her, Krishna prohibits Shrimati Radharani from picking flowers. He may also touch her in front of her friends. At such times, the ecstatic symptoms of Kila Kinchita are awakened. First, there is jubilation in ecstatic love, which is the root cause of these symptoms. Pride, ambition, weeping, smiling, envy, fear, and anger, and the seven ecstatic loving symptoms manifested by a jubilant shrinking away, and these symptoms are called Kila Kinchita Bhava. There are 7 other transcendental ecstatic symptoms, and when they combine on the platform of jubilation, the combination is called Mahabhava. The 7 combined ingredients of Mahabhava, the upright ambition, fear, dry, artificial crying, anger, envy, and mild smile. These are 8 symptoms of ecstatic love on the platform of transcendental jubilation, and when they are combined and tasted by Krishna, the Lord's mind is completely satisfied. Indeed, they are compared to a combination of yogurt, candy, ghee, honey, black pepper, camphor, and cardamom, which, when mixed together, are very tasty and sweet. So you can remember this recipe and cook it for the Lord. Lord Sri Krishna is thousands upon thousands of times more satisfied when he sees Shrimati Radharani's face light up from this combination of ecstatic love than he is by direct union with her. May the sight of Shrimati Radharani's Kila Kinchita ecstasy, which is like a bouquet, bring good fortune to all. When Sri Krishna blocked Radharani's way to the Dhanagati, there was laughter within her heart. Her eyes grew bright and fresh. Tears flowed from her eyes, reddening them. Due to her sweet relationship with Krishna, her eyes were enthusiastic, and when her crying subsided, she appeared even more beautiful. Agitated by tears, Shrimati Radharani's eyes were tinged with red, just like the eastern horizon at sunrise. Her lips began to move with the jubilation and lusty desire. Her eyebrows curved, and her lotus-like face smiled mildly. Seeing Radharani's face exhibit such emotion, Lord Sri Krishna felt 1,000,000 times happier than when he embraced her. Indeed, Lord Sri Krishna's happiness is not at all mundane. Upon hearing this, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu became very happy and became absorbed in this happiness. He embraced Swarupa Damodara Goswami. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu then asked Swarupa Damodara, please speak of the ecstatic ornaments decorating the body of Shrimati Radharani by which she enchants the mind of Sri Govinda. Being thus requested, Swarupa Damodara began to speak. All the devotees of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu were very happy to hear him.
Иногда,
all
когда
very
Шримати
happy to
Радхарани
him.
сидит или
What?
когда она идет во Вриндаван,
Sometimes when
Кришна
Srimati
появляется у
Radharani
нее
is
перед
sitting
глазами.
or when she is going
Признаки
to
разных
Vrindavan
видов
and she sees
экстаза,
Krishna,
которые
the
она
symptom of
проявляет
various
при этом, носит название
ecstasies
Виласа.
that became manifest at that time
Разные
are called
признаки экстаза,
Vilasa.
которые
The various
можно
symptoms
видеть на
manifested in
лице
a woman's
женщины,
face,
в ее
eyes,
глазах
and the
и
other
других
parts of
частях
her
тела,
body,
и
and the
которые
way she moves,
проявляются в ее
stands,
движениях
or sits
и
when
в том,
she
как
meets
она
her
стоит
beloved, are
или
called
сидит
Vilasa.
при встрече с возлюбленным,
Swarupa Damodara said,
называются Виласой.
timidity,
Сварупа Дамодара
jubilation,
сказал:
ambition, respect,
смущение,
fear,
ликование,
and the
желание,
and the
уважительное
characteristics of
отношение,
the
страх
left-wing
и
gopis
все
are
качества,
all
присущие
ecstatic
гопи
symptoms of that
левого крыла,
combine to
таковы
agitate
признаки
Srimati
экстаза, которые,
Radharani.
проявляясь,
When
одновременно
Srimati
приводят Шримати
Radharani saw
Радхарани в
Lord Krishna
смятение.
just before her,
Увидев
her progress
Господа
stopped
Кришну
and
прямо
she
перед собой,
assumed
Шримати Радхарани
an attitude of
остановилась
opposition.
и
Although her
приготовилась
face was
дать ему отпор.
slightly covered by
Хотя
a
лицо
blue
Радхарани
garment,
прикрывала
her two
синяя вуаль,
starry eyes
ее
were
большие лучистые
agitated, being
миндалевидные
white
глаза
and curved. Thus she
заметались от
was
волнения.
decorated with the ornaments of
Украшенная
Vilasa, and her
Виласой,
beauty
она
increased
стала еще
to give
прекрасней,
pleasure to Sri
доставив
Krishna, the
этим
Supreme
удовольствие
Personality
Шри
of
Кришне,
Godhead.
верховной
When
личности Бога.
Srimati Radharani
Когда
stands
Шримати
before Krishna,
Радхарани
she stands
стоит перед
bent
Кришной,
in three
тело ее
places.
изогнуто в
Her
3
neck,
местах,
waist, and the legs,
шее,
and her
талии и
eyebrows
ногах,
dance.
а брови ее
When
танцуют.
there is an
Когда на
awakening
лице
of the
и
various
глазах
ecstatic
Шримати
features
Радхарани
on Srimati Radharani's
проявляются
face, and
разнообразные
in her
признаки
eyes
экстаза,
that are
подчеркивающие
appropriate to a
очарование ее
charming feminine
женственности,
attitude, the Lalita
такое
ornament
украшение
is
носит
manifest.
название лалита.
When the bodily features
Когда
are
женское тело
delicate
нежно
and
и изящно
expertly
изогнуто,
curved,
и
and
женщина
when the
очаровательно
eyebrows
играет
are very
бровями,
beautifully
это
agitated,
проявление
the
ее женских
ornaments
чар,
of a
которое
feminine
называется
charm called
лалита
Lalita
Аланкара.
Alankara is manifest. When Lord Shri Krishna
Стоит
happens to
Господу Шри
see
Кришне
Srimati
увидеть
Radharani
Шримати
decorated
Радхарани,
with these
украшенную
Lalita ornaments,
лалита
they
Аланкарой,
both
как у него
eagerly
и у
want to
самой
meet each
Радхарани
other.
возникает
When Srimati Radharani was
непреодолимое желание
decorated with the
встретиться.
ornaments of
Когда
Lalita
Шримати
Alankara
Радхарани,
just to increase Shri
стремящийся
Krishna's love
больше разжечь
and
любовь Шри Кришны, украсила
attractive
себя лалита
curve
Аланкарой,
was
ее
manifested by
шея,
her neck,
колени и
knees,
талия
and waist.
очаровательно
And
изогнулись.
this was brought
Так
about
появилась
by her timidity
застенчивость
and
Радхарани,
apparent desire to
ее
avoid Krishna.
напускное желание
The
избежать
flickering
Кришны.
movements of her eyebrows
Движения
could
ее
conquer
бровей
the
могли
powerful bow
поспорить даже
of
с
Cupid. To
могущественным
increase
луком
the
Бога любви.
joy of her beloved,
Так,
her
чтобы
body
доставить
was
радость
decorated with
возлюбленному,
the ornaments
она
of Lalita
украсила свое
Alankara.
тело украшениями
When
под
Krishna
названием
comes
лалита
forward
Аланкара.
and greedily
Когда Кришна
snatched
подходит
at
к
the
Шримати
border of her
Радхарани
sari,
и
Srimati
жадно
Radharani
хватает
is actually
ее
very,
за
very
край сари,
pleased with it.
в
But
действительности
still
ей
she
это
tries to
очень
stop
нравится.
him.
Однако
This
она все равно
ecstatic
пытается
attitude of
остановить
Srimati
Кришну.
Radharani is
Это
called
экстатическое умонастроение
Kuttamita.
Шримати Радхарани
When,
называется Куттамитой.
when this ecstatic
Кутвитой,
ornament is
Куттамитой.
manifested,
Когда
Radharani
проявляется
extremely
это
tries to
экстатическое
avoid
украшение,
Krishna, and she
Радхарани как
apparently
будто
becomes
пытается
angry,
избегать Кришны.
although she is
Она
very happy
напускает на
within.
себя сердитый
When the
вид,
border of her
хотя в
sari
душе
and the
очень
clothes
счастлива.
veiling her
Когда
face
край
are
сари
caught,
Радхарани и
she
вуаль,
externally
прикрывающая ее
appears
лицо, оказываются в
offended
руке
and
Кришны,
angry, but
Радхарани
within her
выглядит
heart she is
оскорбительно
very
и
happy.
рассерженной.
Learned
Однако в глубине
scholars
сердца
call
она
this
весьма
attitude
довольна.
Kuttamita.
Сведущие люди называют это
Although
настроение
Srimati Radharani was
Куттамитой.
checking
Шримати
Krishna
Радхарани
with her hand,
отталкивает Кришну
internally
рукой,
she was
но про себя
thinking, let
думает,
Krishna
пусть
satisfy
Кришна
his desires.
удовлетворит свои
In
желания.
this way, she was
Таким
very
образом,
pleased
в
within,
душе
although she
она испытывает
externally
блаженство,
displayed opposition
хотя и
and anger.
выражает всем
Srimati
своим
Radharani
видом
externally
несогласие
displays
и
a
гнев.
kind of
Шримати
dry
Радхарани
crying, as if
притворно,
she
без
is
слез,
offended. Then
плачет,
she
как
mildly
будто ее
smiles and
оскорбили, а потом,
admonishes
мягко
Lord
улыбнувшись,
Krishna.
начинает
Actually, she
упрекать
has no
Кришну.
desire to stop
На самом
Krishna's
деле Шримати
endeavors to touch
Радхарани,
her body
бедра
with his
которой
hands.
напоминают
Yet
хобот
Srimati
слоненка,
Radharani,
не
whose
против
things
того,
are
чтобы
like
Кришна
the
прикасался к ней.
trunk
Тем
of
не
the baby
менее,
elephant,
она
protests
отвергает
his
его ухаживание
advances
и с
and
мягкой
sweetly
улыбкой
smiling
ругает его. При этом
admonishes
Радхарани
him.
плачет, но на
At
ее
such times she cries without
обворожительном
tears on
лице
her
не
charming face.
появляется ни
In this
одной
way,
слезинки.
Srimati Radharani
Так
is
Шримати
ornamented
Радхарани
and
украшают
decorated with various
разнообразные
ecstatic
признаки
symptoms which attracts
экстаза,
the mind of Sri
пленяющий ум
Krishna.
Шри Кришны.
It is not at all
Описать
possible to
безграничную
describe the
лилы Шри
unlimited
Кришны
pastimes of Sri
невозможно,
Krishna,
хотя
even
сам он и
though he
пытается это
himself
сделать
described
в
them
своем
in his
воплощении
incarnation of
Сахасравадана,
Shahra
тысячеустого
Sahasravardhana,
Шетанани.
the Southern Mountain
mounted Shashanaga. At this time, Srinivasa Thakura smiled and told Swarupa Damodara, "My dear soul, please hear. Just see how opulent my goddess of fortune is. As far as Vrindavana's opulence is concerned, it consists of a few flowers and twigs, some minerals from the hills, a few peacock's feathers, and a plant known as Gunja." When Jagannatha decided to see Vrindavana, he went there, and upon hearing this, the goddess of fortune experienced restlessness and jealousy. She wondered, why did Lord Jagannatha give up so much opulence and go to Vrindavana? To make him a laughing stock, the goddess of fortune made arrangements for much decorations. Then the main servants of the goddess of fortune said to the servants of Lord Jagannatha, "Why did you, Lord Jagannatha, abandon the great opulence of the goddess of fortune and, for the sake of a few leaves, fruits and flowers, go see the flower garden of Srimati Radharani? Your master is so expert at everything, but why does he do such thing? Now bring your master before the goddess of fortune." In this way, all the maid servants of the goddess of fortune arrested the servants of Jagannatha, bound them around the waist, and brought them before the goddess of fortune. When all the maid servants brought the Lord Jagannatha's servants before the lotus feet of the goddess of fortune, the Lord's servants were fined and forced to submit. All the maid servants began to beat the Radhakai with sticks, and they treated the servants of Lord Jagannatha almost like thieves. Finally, all the Lord Jagannatha's servants submitted to the goddess of fortune with folded hands, assuring her that they would bring Lord Jagannatha before her the very next day. Being thus pacified, the goddess of fortune returned to her apartment. "Just see, my goddess of fortune is opulent beyond all description." So Srivastava Thakura continued to address Swarupa Damodara, "Your gopis are engaged in boiling milk and churning yogurt, but my mistress, the goddess of fortune, sits on a throne made of jewels and gems." Srivastava Thakura, who was enjoying the mood of Narada Muni, thus made jokes. Hearing him, all the personal servants of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to smile. If someone don't know, Narada Muni is Srivastava Thakura in these pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then told Srivastava Thakura, "My dear Srivastava, your nature is exactly like that of Narada Muni. The Supreme Personality of Godhead's opulence is having a direct influence upon you. Swarupa Damodara is a pure devotee of Vrindavana. He doesn't even know what opulence is, for he is simply absorbed in pure devotion source." Swarupa Damodara then retorted, "My dear Srivasa, please hear me with attention. You have forgotten the transcendental opulence of Vrindavana. The nature opulence of Vrindavana is just like an ocean. The opulence of Dwaraka and Vaikuntha is not even to be compared to a drop. Sri Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, full of all opulences, and his complete opulences are exhibited only in Vrindavana Dhama. Vrindavana Dhama is made of transcendental touched stone. Its entire surface is the source of all valuable jewels, and the Chintamani stone is used to decorate the lotus feet of the maidservants of Vrindavana. Vrindavana is a natural forest of desired trees and creepers, and the inhabitants do not want anything but the fruits and flowers of these desire trees. In Vrindavana, there are cows that fulfill the desires, kamadhenus, and their number is unlimited. They graze from forest to forest and deliver only milk. The people want nothing else. In Vrindavana, the natural speech of the people sounds like music, and their natural motion resembles a dance. The water in Vrindavana is nectar, and the Brahma-jyoti effulgence, which is full of transcendental bliss, is directly perceived there in its form. The gopis there are also goddesses of fortune, and they surpass the goddess of fortune who abides in Vaikuntha. In Vrindavana, Lord Krishna is always playing his transcendental flute, which is his dear companion. The damsels of Vrindavana, the gopis, are super goddesses of fortune. The enjoyer in Vrindavana is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. The trees there are all wish-fulfilling trees, and the land is made of transcendental touchstone. The water is all nectar. The talking is singing, the walking is dancing, and the constant companion of Krishna is his flute. The effulgence of transcendental bliss is experienced everywhere. Therefore, Vrindavana Dhama is the only realizable abode. The anchors of the damsels of Rajabhumi are made of Chintamani stone. The trees are wish-fulfilling trees, and they produce flowers with which the gopis decorate themselves. There are also wish-fulfilling cows, Kamadhenus, which deliver unlimited quantities of milk. These cows constitute the wells of Vrindavana. Thus, Vrindavana's opulence is blissfully exhibited. Srivasa Thakur then began to dance in ecstatic love. He vibrated sounds by slapping his armpits or with the palms of the hands, and he laughed very loudly. Thus, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard these discussions about the pure transcendental mellow of Srimati Radharani, absorbed in transcendental ecstasy, and Lord began to dance. While Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was dancing in ecstatic love and Swarupa Damodara was singing, the Lord said, "Go on singing, go on singing." The Lord then extended his own ears. Thus, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's ecstatic love was awakened by hearing the song of Vrindavana. In this way, he inundated Purushottam Jagannath Puri with love of Godhead. Finally, the goddess of fortune returned to her apartment. In due course of time, as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was dancing, afternoon arrived. After much singing, all four Sankirtana parties grew fatigued, but Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's ecstatic love increased twofold. While dancing, absorbed in Srimati Radharani's ecstatic love, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in her very form. Seeing this from a distant place, Nityananda Prabhu offered praise. Seeing the ecstatic love of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nityananda Prabhu did not approach but remained a little distance away. Only Nityananda Prabhu could catch Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but the ecstatic mood of the Lord would not stop. At the same time, Kirtana could not be continued. Swarupa Damodara then informed the Lord that all the devotees were fatigued. Seeing this situation, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to his external senses. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then entered the flower garden with all his devotees. After resting there for some time, he took his afternoon bath. Then there arrived in large quantities a variety of food that had been offered to Sri Jagannatha and a variety that had been offered to the goddess of fortune. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu finished his afternoon lunch, and after his evening bath, he went to see the Lord Jagannatha. As soon as he saw the Lord Jagannatha, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to chant and dance. Afterward, accompanied by his devotees, and the Lord enjoyed sporting in the lake called Narendra Sarovar. Then, entering the flower garden, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took his meal. In this way, he continuously performed all kinds of pastimes for 8 days. The next day, Lord Jagannatha came out from the temple and, riding on the car, returned to his own abode. As previously, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his devotees chanted and danced with great pleasure. During the Pandu Vijaya, Lord Jagannatha was carried, and while he was being carried, a bunch of silken rope broke. When the Jagannatha deity is carried, at the intervals he is placed on the cotton pads. When the rope broke, the cotton pads also broke due to the weight of Lord Jagannatha, and the cotton floated into the air. Mananda Vasu and Prince Satyaraja Khan we present from Kalina Grama. Then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with great respect gave them the following orders. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ordered Ramananda Vasu and Satyaraja Khan to become the worshippers of these robes and every year bring silken robes from their village. After telling them this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu showed them the broken silken robes, saying, "Just look at this sample. You must make robes that are much stronger." Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then informed Ramananda Vasu and Satyaraja Khan that this robe was the abode of Lord Shesha, who expands himself into 10 forms and serves the Supreme Personality of Godhead. After receiving an order from the Lord for rendering of service for the fortunate Satyaraja and Ramananda Vasu were highly pleased. Every year thereafter, when the Gundicha temple was being cleaned, Satyaraja and Ramananda Vasu would come in with the other devotees and with great pleasure bring silken robe. Thus, Lord Jagannatha returned to his temple and sat on his throne, while Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu returned to his residence with his devotees. Thus, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu showed the Rathayatra ceremony to his devotees and performed the Vrindavana pastimes with them. The pastimes of Lord Chaitanya are unlimited and endless. Even Sahasravadana, Lord Shesha, cannot reach the limit of his pastimes. Praying at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa and Sri Raghunatha always designed their mercy. I, Krishna Dasa, narrate Sri Caitanya-caritamrta, following in their footsteps. This is the end of 14th chapter. So, I had a feeling that we were at Jagannath Puri ourselves. Exactly when there were description of emotion of Radharani, it brings our consciousness in another reality. Of course, it's very secret things. Let us say someone in the street that this is the scriptures that in scriptures describes such things, dancing, singing, some emotions that they eat, then again sing, sweep, have some emotions, fall down. And so if we say to people that it's the higher expression of feelings, people will not won't understand. They will say that we don't need such religion. So that's why this it's not for everyone, as Jesus said, don't tell it to everyone. So we are very fortunate that we can hear such things, and we must be very attentive not to go to sentiments. We need to be grown up, and by the mercy of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu we can reach these things to what purpose we should gain. And when Srila Prabhupada came to West, firstly he translated the 10th canto that people could understand the purpose. They understand the Krishna of what they should meditate. So the devotees could understand where they will go. This is the description of Vrindavana. This Vrindavana is the whole touchstone, is built in touchstone. The trees are made of jewels, of course, and flowers also. And in external form, they are like ordinary trees and flowers. But in spiritual world, it's all in different way. And it's our fortune that we can see, hear, read these things, these secret spiritual things. So let's glorify Sri Prabhupada, Sri Caitanya-caritamrta, his associates, that they gave us opportunity to hear this, see this, that our feelings could be spiritualized while we here on this marathon. Our feelings are spiritualized. So thank you, all the participants of this marathon. Let's do a little break and meet in 15 minutes. So thank you, everybody. Good luck.